Every man's entitled to a fair trial, wouldn't you say?
Right, but you never shot an innocent man.
I never met an innocent man.
Outlaws Remastered is finally here, fresh from the depths of Nightdive Studios. A big thank you to them for providing the review key. Outlaws was originally released in 1997 by Lucasarts, back in their heyday, before the dark times, before the Empire. Back then, not only were they releasing a slew of excellent Star Wars titles that many of us still love today, they were also releasing a slew of original titles that many of us still love today too. And Outlaws was a standout amongst standouts, being a Western-themed first-person shooter with a focus on telling an epic revenge story. Outlaws was developed by much of the same personnel behind Dark Forces and shares its engine, and while the DNA of Dark Forces can be felt in Outlaws, its Western theme facilitates a unique FPS experience compared to its Star Wars cousin and many other FPS titles of the day. Unfortunately, Outlaws was not a commercial success back when it was released, but over the years the game has garnered a strong cult following, and fortunately has been widely available on Steam and GOG. But unfortunately, the years have not been kind to it, with gamers having to deal with many outdated technical aspects. But that's where Nightdive has come in, absorbing Outlaws into their Kex engine and slapping it with a fresh coat of high-resolution paint. And in today's video, not only will I be discussing the results of the remaster effort, I will also be lending my thoughts on this relic of 1990s gaming, all to help you decide if it's worth your fistful of dollars. So with that, let's reload our 6 shooters and saddle up our horses, and ride off into some nostalgia. But wait! Before we get cracking, I want to say a few words on Digiphile, who I am now an affiliate of. Founded by ex-members of Humble Bundle, Digiphile is basically doing the same thing as them, but better, bundling games together for low prices and supporting charities along the way, and in other realms of entertainment besides gaming, like movies, music, and comic books. Right now, Digiphile is doing the return of the Immersive Sim collection, bundling together recent ImSim hits like Fallen Aces, Blood West, and Peripetya, along with foundational classics like System Shock 2. For the collection, you have the option to pay $9, $13, or $20, with $20 netting you the full collection, around $180 worth of Steam games. You also have the option to donate extra to charity, in this case the Arbor Day Foundation. And yes, a percentage of it does go to me as an affiliate. So if you want to help support this channel, give to charity, and of course beef up your Steam library, please use my affiliate link down in the description or in my pinned comment. Alright, enough with that, let's get on with the video. A big thing that set 1990s LucasArts apart from other developers is that on top of trying to provide an engrossing gameplay experience with their titles, they were also trying to tell a rich story, and Outlaws was no exception. Set sometime in the late 19th century, you play as James Anderson, a retired marshal living a peaceful life on a farm with his wife and young daughter.
She got a voice on her, almost as pretty as yours, Anna.
Shall I write a list for you?
Nope. Got it in my head, ain't I?
You better have.
One day, while running errands, a gang of outlaws sent to coerce the marshal off his land, murder his wife, and kidnap his daughter, leaving him devastated and pissed. After burying his wife, the marshal sets off to hunt down the bandits responsible and rescue his daughter.
Damn it! I told that fool doctor stealing your kid weren't gonna be good for anyone's health.
The plot is actually very reminiscent of Kill Bill, which also took its inspiration from many of the same westerns Outlaws likely did. I love Kill Bill, so it sticks out to me especially. With the structure of the game having you take on each outlaw one by one, eventually leading you to the main big baddie of it all. And while these outlaws are featured only briefly, each leaves a distinct impression due to their outlandish personalities, and of course because of the game's distinctive and well done animated cutscenes, which were unique for the time. The secret sauce of the narrative is the Marshal himself. While very much a Clint Eastwood-esque Western character with an intimidating presence and a few good one-liners, the game shows that, under the surface, he is motivated by a childhood trauma, one that he is desperate not to repeat in saving his daughter. It's something that makes the player connect with him on a deeper level, past the badassery. It's a simple tale, but a highly entertaining one that decades later still holds up, beautifully presented and hardly overshadowing the gameplay. Many of today's shooters can take some lessons from it. Outlaws follows Nightdive's remastering style of completely overhauling the graphics so that they look better, but still staying faithful to the original and true to the era it's from, so that it looks like how you remember it. And I'd say they were mostly successful. Enemies, NPCs, and livestock appear to have been completely redrawn, making them feel more consistent with the game's animated cutscenes. This also goes for the weapon models, which now look cleaner and a bit more three-dimensional. There are some slight differences when comparing them to the original models, but by and large they are faithful. Although, personally, I always felt the Outlaws gun models looked awkward, especially the rifle and how the sheriff's fingers wrap around it. It's just weird looking to me. But I digress. There's smaller details that Nightdive added. Booze bottles now have labels you can mostly read, along with other signage that before was a blur of pixels. And in the train car level, the cabin windows now actually have glass on them, with a bit of discoloring and dirt. It is a solid sprucing up of the visuals. However, if you're not feeling the enhancements, you can swap back to the original graphics with just the tap of the F2 key, and even turn on the original rendering in case you're nostalgic for the world warping when you look up and down. And playing with the original graphics is not a bad way to experience this game. Sure, the years may not have been kind to them in some regards, but I think there's still a lot of charm to them. And to be clear, still a huge improvement over playing the original version.
Who is it wants to know?
Well, we was wondering if your husband has given any more consideration to the offer that we made on this farm a couple of weeks back.
You got your answer then, I believe.
The animated cutscenes, one of the standout aspects of Outlaws, have also been upscaled and cleaned up a little bit. Although unfortunately, I don't think there was much else Nightdive could do with these past recreating them from scratch. So they tend to look squiggly in some parts and somewhat blurry in others.
Oops! You missed the train! Sorry!
But putting the technical stuff aside, the cutscenes are still entertaining and hold up in many ways. Definitely a cut above back in the 90s.
Too bad. I was hoping we could talk.
Past the remaster work, there are presentational aspects to Outlaws that helped it stick out back in 1997, and I think hold up beautifully today. One technique I enjoy is how it will snap into a cutscene after defeating a boss character. The first level is the best example of this, where after you win a shootout against a bandit, right on the click of the kill shot, it cuts right to him hitting the wall, gunshot and bloody. It's simple, but very immersive. I also love how the enemies will yell and taunt at you.
Where are you, Marshall?
Reminds me of the classic Western scenes where the hero is held up somewhere during a shootout and the bandits are trying to coax him out.
Don't be a fool, Marshall!
But the music is still a standout. It's fantastic. The score is largely evocative of the spaghetti western themes of Ennio Morricone. In fact, one of the tracks is basically a knockoff of Ecstasy of Gold from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Although while the score blatantly wears its influences on its sleeve, the execution of it is phenomenal, and there's some great variety. More solemn western ballads, and energetic rockabilly tunes with just a hint of medieval. Composed by Clint Bajakian, who also did the music for Star Wars TIE Fighter, Dark Forces, and a swath of other LucasArts classics, he utilized a live orchestra to record the music, which for 1997 was not terribly common, and gives the game not only an authentic spaghetti western sound, but also lends this grandeur to it that feels outright heroic and noble. This is what made LucasArts so awesome back in the 90s. It was that extra layer of production value that only the house that Star Wars built could provide. Thanks for killing it, Disney. Oh no, don't you dare bring up the current Lucasfilm games in the comments. That is not the same thing. Now, shooters of this era were often labeled as Doom clones, and yes, while Outlaws' core gameplay takes its cues from Doom, there are key differences in LucasArts' design to make it feel more like a Western, so to speak, along with other notable innovations. The first thing to talk about is the reloading. Seeing as your arsenal is made up of late 1800s weaponry, you have to reload one bullet at a time for all weapons. Worry not, this can be done by holding down the R key until the weapon is full. This may sound like a pain, and yes, at times it is, but it does work to the game's benefit, lending a sense of being in an intense Wild West gunfight, where maybe you run into a room, rapidly empty your 6-shooter, and get behind cover to quickly reload it before the baddies round the corner. It also pushes players to be a little smarter and cautious. You don't want to be caught reloading, especially since it doesn't take many shots to put the marshal down. Although admittedly, throwing caution to the wind and rampaging through a level like you're the Doomslayer is a lot of fun. Outlaws also has a focus on puzzle solving and using inventory items, which, yes, other shooters at the time like Duke Nukem 3D featured, but in Outlaws' case, it feels like something that bled over from LucasArts' point-and-click adventure titles. There's not a ton of examples of this, and some of the inventory items are meant for secrets, but in most cases, it's tracking down a crowbar so you can pry open stuck doors, or using medical bags to heal. But in one map, you have to find a shovel so you can dig inside a bank where some baddies are held up, which is pretty cool. Or track down gears to fix a machine in a sawmill. Ugh, more on that in a bit. It's a fun system to have in the game though, even if it's underutilized. Outlaws was also one of the first examples of an FPS having a sniper scope, something that would also be featured in GoldenEye just a few months later. And Outlaws is also an early example of an FPS featuring a stamina gauge, a red thermometer at the bottom that depletes when you sprint. It also fills in as your breath bar when swimming. Although for those that hate this sort of mechanic in their shooters, don't worry, the energy bar is very generous. An appreciated addition for the remaster is the new weapon wheel, allowing you to quickly swap through the Marshal's varied arsenal and throwables. And while we're talking about remaster editions, full controller support is included along with gyro aiming. Switch users will be particularly happy about that. Now, as fun as Outlaws is, there are some annoyances in the combat. Certain enemies are able to demolish you as soon as you come into their sight, which, sure, may convey a quick draw sort of thing common of westerns, but rounding a corner and immediately getting killed is irritating, unfair, and common on the hardest difficulty. Granted, dynamite can be a good solution for moments like those. While we're on the subject of the dynamite, it can feel clunky to throw, with a floatiness to its physics that makes it unpredictable. But I can't lie, there were moments where I was having fun, maybe a little too much fun, chucking out the TNT. I throw my dynamite in Sims 4 so I can. Another irritation is that sometimes enemies are able to shoot you when their sprite isn't facing your direction. This wasn't common, but when it happened to me, it was the stuff of rage quits. There's also the level design, which is quite good. Many of the maps are open and lend the player some good freedom to explore, while funneling them into more focused zones for difficult shootouts. Oh, and some of the secrets in these maps are the stuff of legends. It's just that they're old school. Yeah, prepare to comb through sprawling maps for that one key tucked in a corner, or small hint for a troublesome puzzle. I definitely lost my patience on a few of them, but if you allow me to complain just a little more, there's one big holdover from Dark Forces in that Outlaws also has an annoying water canals level, the Sawmill. It's straight up the version 2 of the Dark Forces sewers level, and just like in that, you have very little control over yourself, it's dark, and if you mess up, you have to repeat them. And while the solution to them is straightforward, the process of figuring it out can be a headache. It wasn't fun in that game, it's not fun here. Gah! Of course, this remaster is not made up of just Outlaws. It's Outlaws and a handful of missions, which refers to the historical missions expansion included. This is a collection of levels made available for download following Outlaws' original release, loosely telling the story of the Marshal's early career in law enforcement. The quality of these maps do vary. In fact, I think the first one of the bunch, Civil War, is fairly underwhelming with its overly large and bland design, but you do get some inspired maps here that experiment with Outlaws level design, like the Ice Caves with its slippery, icy slopes. The highlight of it, though, is the Marshal Training, which is actually a mini-campaign nested in this. You start at a home base and take on a series of bounties, each with their own unique map. At the end, you're graded on each and can rank yourself up until you reach the status of Marshal. The levels within Marshal Training are fairly decent. Visually, they are on the simple side, and some are made up of recycled portions of the main campaign. In fact, one of them is basically Sims 4 at night. I shoot in Sims 4 at night. Overall, though, the historical missions are a solid inclusion, especially considering the main campaign is on the short side, and keeps this new version of Outlaws a complete and definitive version of the game. Outlaws may show its age in some regards, but it remains an incredibly enjoyable shooter with an epic story and hard-hitting gameplay. And despite some nitpicks with its upscaling, Nightdive's remaster work once again shines here and keeps this 90s classic alive and thriving. For classic shooter fans, it's absolutely something to check out. But also, I would recommend it to LucasArts fans that want to experience a highlight from their classic catalog that isn't a Star Wars title or an adventure game. Before we wrap up, the last thing I want to say, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but I think this game deserves a sequel. I think it could have a sequel, and I feel there's more stories that could be told in this world. Another adventure with the Marshal, or perhaps assuming the role of his daughter as a grown woman. I think stylistically it would do well too, not only with its gameplay, which is back in vogue now with the boomer shooter boom, but also Outlaws' animated art style could be expressed better with current tech. Look no further than the recent Forgive Me Father 2, which despite being a Lovecraftian horror game, renders its world in a similar way to Outlaws. Now I know the chances of this happening are slim to none. While I love that Disney is allowing the classic LucasArts games to be revived, I doubt they have any interest in creating new titles for them. Their priorities seem to be producing mid-tier Star Wars games with crumbling gaming institutions. But you never know, there was a Monkey Island sequel recently, and I just want to put that out into the universe. A Full Throttle sequel would be nice too. In the meantime though, hey Nightdive, you got Dark Forces and Outlaws out the door. We doing Jedi Knight next? Maybe Shadow of the Empire? Anyways, enough of my rambling. What are your thoughts on Outlaws? And what other classic LucasArts properties would you like to see remastered? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. It's a huge help for the algorithm and getting my videos seen by more people. If you want to join my Discord, the link is down below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.